Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today, a little bit more on the lighter side. We like it, so here you go. What's something you did when you were younger that you still think about and cringe to today? Please remember to like, share, hype, ask and listen for shoutouts, and subscribe. Enjoy.
My mom went out briefly, so I shut myself in my bedroom, took off all my clothes, and started dancing crazily in front of the mirror. Think Groucho Marx in the mirror scene. Quick step, straight arms, flailing out in jubilation, but, naked. I'm not sure why. I was 11 and I believe I had my reasons at the time. It all went fine, and I heard the front door signaling my mom's return, so I stopped and redressed and started doing normal stuff again, albeit with somewhat flushed cheeks from my extensions. That was when she came up to my room to gently tell me I was clearly visible from the road. My full-length mirror was right next to the window, and my room was at the front of the house. I was in elementary school, and my father completely shaved off his beard and mustache one night. When he came in to wake up my sister and me to get ready for school, I didn't recognize him at all. My solution to having a stranger in my room was to quietly go into my closet and shut the door. They still laugh about that one, but come on. Who makes such a drastic change overnight and doesn't tell their kids? When I was in high school, in one of my classes toward the end of the year, we had a little potluck of sorts where kids could bring baked goods or whatever and chit-chat and relax after finals week. One girl had brought the tray of cookies with dips in the middle. In the middle sat what were probably dollops of chocolate ganache. They looked real good. So good, in fact, that I turned to my friend to make some crazy, hyperbolic statement about them to make him laugh. Being a genius, I went with, "Those look disgustingly good," whatever that was supposed to mean. Also, being a genius, I hadn't noticed that the girl who baked them was standing on my other side. When I turned to look at her, it was obvious all she had heard was me emphasizing the word disgusting. She looked devastated. I tried my best to explain what I had actually said, but since the truth sounded exactly like a lame attempt at a lie, I just had to accept my cookie in shame. It was something like 15 years ago, and it still haunts me to this day. If you're reading this, I swear the cookies are actually looking really good. In my early teens, I used to jerk it on the bed all the time. My bed had a loose board on the headboard that would kind of make this clacking sound to my stroking. As a naive child, I assumed nobody could hear it. Turns out, everybody, my older sisters, my mom, dad, and even my aunt who stayed with us a lot, heard me jerking all the time and knew exactly what was going on. I learned this about 4 years after moving out, when we all got together and got drunk one night. And on my way up to the bedroom, my drunk-ass mom goes, "We don't want to hear that headboard clanking tonight, or you're going to be washing those sheets." Everyone laughed. I was like, "What?" And then thought about it all night. Nobody acknowledged it at breakfast. Good God, that was awful. I've always been really self-conscious and shy. Back in grade school, it was my turn for show and tell. I didn't think I was good enough to show anything, so I, of course, asked my mom what I should do. I'd been playing with a toy harmonica a lot. My favorite thing to do was to play Guess the Song with Mom so I could tell if I was improving. She suggested I bring in the harmonica and play Guess the Song for the class. Oh boy. Well, shit. I'm actually good at this? I'll do it. So I get to class and I say we're going to play a game. I'll play a song on my harmonica. You guys tell me what song it is. We were so hyped, you guys. Visions of friends and acceptance danced in my head. I walk to the middle of the circle, so excited I was going to crush. Okay, here we go. I blew into the thing like my life depended on it. I fucking John Poppered it, you guys. I must have gone 45 seconds before the teacher waved me off and said, "Great job." Nobody could guess the song. But Old MacDonald? Come on, I could do another one. Nothing. The teacher said my turn was up. There would be no second song. I walked back to my seat so humiliated. Turns out my mom had learned to guess Old MacDonald because that's what I always said I'd been playing. I guess she wanted to encourage me? Why she sent me into class not knowing how to fucking play the harmonica is another question. I cringe to this day. I'm not sure my social life recovered until college. I was homeschooled when I was younger and didn't really interact with kids my age until I started public high school in 9th grade. I desperately wanted to fit in and seem as funny and cool, so when I noticed that yo mama jokes seemed to get people laughing, I sprung on the opportunity to roast someone's mother and solidify myself as an edgy comedy genius. One day, armed with an arsenal of yo mama jokes I had looked up online the night before, I smugly turned to the brand new friend John and said, "Yo mama's so old, I told her to act her age and she died." Instantly the group fell silent and John looked intensely uncomfortable. But then his face lit up and he put his arm around me and said, "That was a good one, Cogdis88, with a genuinely kind smile on his face. It was only later that day that someone pulled me aside and explained that John's mom had passed away from ovarian cancer a month earlier, and that it's hard for him to think about or talk about her death. I was mortified, and the fact that John responded with sincere kindness instead of publicly calling me out made me feel even worse. John was an awesome guy, and I still wish there was some not weird way to go back and apologize to him about that. When I was in middle school, my older sister liked to collect dead animals and put them in hydrogen peroxide to keep the skeletons. One day, she had a high school lab where they dissected cats, like full-grown adult cats. Well, my sister apparently really wanted a cat skull to put in her room because she asked for my help without telling me what I was doing. I'm still haunted often by the memory of my sister handing me a pair of scissors and telling me to cut the head off of one of the bodies, only to mess it up and have to do it again. Now, whenever I pet one of our cats, I very often have the urge to throw up, because I'm reminded of how it felt to cut through a spine with a pair of cheap scissors. I was a very outdoorsy kid, and I was playing in the dirt while my aunt was gardening. I picked aside around 6 worms, and my aunt commented that they'd burned to a crisp. I was horrified, so naturally, I shoved them all into my mouth and ate them all. My aunt was screaming and asking why the hell I did that, and apparently my answer was that they'd be safe in my tummy. This still comes up at family dinners, and I've never been able to live that shit down. I was at this women's health bar at a museum when I was 12, and I was walking to all the booths and picking up free things. They had toothbrushes, stickers, cheap necklaces, candy, etc. At one booth I picked up what I thought must have been a foil packet of sample lotion or something. I didn't think much of it. The woman running the booth sees me and gently asks how old I am, and I tell her, clearly trying to embarrass me. She says she doesn't think I need those. I ask why not, and she tells me they're condoms. I stare at the packet in my hand, horrified, throw it on the table, and literally bolt. My parents took me and a friend of mine to a flea market. My friend and I were browsing a stand, and I saw a really nice quill that I wanted to buy with my pocket money. I asked the dude how much it was, and I thought he answered something like, "You can't afford that." I said, "Okay, then keep it," and walked away. My friend asked me why I did that, and was confused. I asked her what she meant, and she explained that he said I could just have it for free. I don't know how I misunderstood that, but I felt so bad about my reaction in the new context, and I still do. I guess I was about 12 at the time. I had discovered masturbation the year before, and obviously it had become by far my favorite thing. But what was new to me was the act of masturbating with lubricant. It was accidental, really, much the same as the first time I jerked it to a completion and realized how much better that was than just kind of playing with it. Jerking off with lube blew my mind. Problem is, the lube I discovered was soap. Now, if you've ever off with soap and overdone it, you know that the skin gets dry. And to say I overdid it would be like saying tacos are pretty good. In reality, that night in the shower, I beat my like it had stolen from me. The consequences of this, however, didn't show up until the next day, and didn't reach their peak until the day after that. And this was in the midst of riding 6 hours in the car with my mom to visit my sister, who was having brain surgery. My penis was so dry, it was shiny and spiderwebbed with scabs. Mom finally asked me in the hospital why I kept going to the bathroom. I was putting water on it to try and calm the burning and itching. And when I described it to her, she then asked my aunt, who was a nurse, about it. They decided, as a pair, that I had a yeast infection. This is also how I discovered that one of my male cousins frequently got yeast infections on his dick as an adolescent. So Mom got me some anti-itch cream, and when she told Dad about it, he said it was probably the new laundry detergent we had used because his dick was shiny too. I still don't know if he was covering for me, or if he had also jacked off with soap or what. Ugh. When I was 10, I asked for a Game Boy Advance for my birthday. My mistake was that in my haste, I hadn't mentioned what game I wanted to play on it. My dad ended up getting me some arcade shooter for it, and I told him that I didn't want or like it. When I told him, he responded with, "Oh, it looked really good to me," and in one of the most hurt tones I've ever heard him use. I know he probably doesn't remember it, but every time I think about it, which is often, I feel like garbage. Just typing this makes me want to cry. It's the one thing I wish I could go back and change if given the chance to. I know it probably doesn't seem that bad to everyone else, but my dad is one of the toughest SOBs I know, so knowing that I hurt his feelings hurts me a lot. I was really boy crazy, and it was at its all-time height when I was in middle school. So all the weird, creepy stalking is pretty cringy to think about, like making sure I just so happened to walk by doors as I got out of class, or by my lockers. But thinking back on the phone calls, because my friends were just as bad, so we all had way too much support from each other to call these guys from whosever house we were at landline. Sometimes they were prank calls, sometimes we'd try and talk to them, sometimes we got yelled at by the parents on the other end. Ugh. Alright, so when I was about 11, I was diagnosed with celiac. That meant I couldn't and still can't eat anything with gluten in it. With that said, it made eating out anywhere besides my house and a select few places kind of awkward, especially because I was a picky little shit to start with. About a month or two into my new diet, I was invited to a friend's house for his birthday party. When I got there, I found out they had talked with my dad and made me a gluten-free pot of mac and cheese. That would have been great, except for the fact that 11-year-old me hated mac and cheese. I remember trying to fake eating some while my friend's mom was watching, but I eventually just gave up and avoided the plate and her entirely. I essentially left an entire pot of mac and cheese made specifically for me alone. And just in case somebody isn't aware, gluten-free substitutes aren't cheap. The moment that still sticks with me, nearly 10 years later, is the mom looking at the pot and going, "What am I going to do with all this?" It still makes me cringe at night thinking about it. Oh.
Alright guys, it's shout out time, and I have a personal one as well. So want to say hello to Robin Robertson again. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Ms. Witch Hazel 308, and your kids. Thanks for listening at night. That's very nice to hear. Thank you so much. Flimsy Endo, you wanted to thank whoever decided to have me narrate. It's a gentleman who is the owner of the channel, and they were using the robot voice, and then they started to say that it wasn't quality content, YouTube at least was. I was going to demonetize, and he had a human voice, and he had posted, and I responded with a couple other people, and I sent up a 3-minute video, and lucky for me, and maybe for some of you, that he liked it. And here we are 5 years later. And also today is my son Ben's 12th birthday, October 19th. So happy birthday, buddy. he's waiting right outside. See you guys soon.
I was at my friend's house. I'm a guy, she's a girl. My friend and I are both 13 at the time, and we're most of our friends. So on this particular day, we were hanging out and jumping on the trampoline and stuff, and it's really hot, and we wanted to go in the pool. I unfortunately forgot to bring a bathing suit with me. Ugh, I'm cringing just writing this. Anyways, she offers to let me borrow one of her shorts so I could go in the pool. I didn't care because she was a tomboy anyway, so her shorts were probably resembled boy shorts. So she gives me these shorts to put on, and I don't know why it didn't cross anyone's mind that this would be a problem, but the shorts were completely white. And since I didn't have a change of underwear, I went commando in those things. So, we go in the pool, we're playing pool basketball, and everything is fine. Then somebody knocks the basketball out of the pool. So I go to get it, still not thinking about it. I get out of the pool and all of a sudden I hear, Miller 0622, and then it hit me. My half-pubescent body is completely exposed for everyone to see. I immediately covered my little wing-wang, but it was already too late. I jumped back in the pool and made everyone get out and go inside until I toweled off and changed. I was so mortified at the time, but 10 years later it's pretty funny to think about, and how none of us anticipated the problem. We don't speak about the incident, but every once in a while when I see my friend, we're still great friends, one of us will mention the story and know exactly what we're talking about. When I was in 4th grade, I made it to the final round of my school's geography bee and had the chance to beat one of the 5th graders, thereby proving that I was the smartest kid in my elementary school. The question I received was, what is the capital of Washington? Of course, I confidently yelled Seattle. No, Spokane. And then immediately after realized my mistake. I'm still haunted by that missed opportunity. For further clarification, I've never lived in Washington State, but grew up in a neighborhood state, so I felt like I should have known the answer because of proximity. My shame was magnified by the fact that this happened in the spring of 2001, just a couple of months after an earthquake had cracked the dome of the Capitol building in Olympia. Plus, I was the kind of kid who cared about geography bees, so I had tried to memorize all the state capitals. I knew the right answer, but I cracked under the pressure. When I was in middle school, maybe about 12, we went on a school trip to a local theme park. In my friend group, we were slightly odd, but also really never got into trouble at school. We liked our class teacher, but we also liked to wind him up. Middle school kids are little shits, and I can't imagine how hard it is to be a teacher. We had been hanging out with our teacher at the theme park and tried to get him to come on rides with us, which he did. We wanted him to come on the log flume with us, but he refused as he didn't want to get wet. Later, I came up with a plan with one of my friends, that we were going to get him wet even if he wouldn't go on the log flume. In our heads, this would be hilarious and something that went through our teacher would laugh about too. We somehow convinced the teacher to come on a little kiddie boat ride with us. It was something like a pirate ship that went around a track in the water and went into a cave. I had found an empty plastic cup, which I gave to my friend. As we were going round the ride, my friend secretly scooped up a cup full of dirty-looking water that, when our best went into the tunnel, she tipped it right over the teacher's head. We laughed triumphantly at first, but then realized very quickly that our teacher was not laughing. He was furious. I think he probably swore and then sat there in silence, seething for the rest of the ride. We knew that we had done big time, but we were too embarrassed to speak, so we did not even apologize. We all sat there in awkward silence until the end of the ride. Once we all got off, he stormed off straight away without saying a word. We felt so bad we didn't want to go back and face him again later. We contemplated running away and not meeting back with the rest of the school and the coaches at the end of the day. We did, of course, go back, and it wasn't as bad as we thought. The teacher never mentioned the incident again. I cringe and feel so embarrassed whenever I remember that day. I don't know what we were thinking. I heard years afterwards that our old teacher quit his job because of stress. I know it wasn't because of us, but I still feel guilty. Alright, here goes. I'm cringe crying whenever I think about that one. It has to be one of the worst stories of my life. When I was in my last year of high school, there was a really thin girl I was interested in. I made friends with her, and through our talks, I learned that she had anorexia. Everyone who knew about it tried to help her in their own little way, myself included. I would try my best to make her laugh, help with work, etc. Then one day, she stopped coming. Her body had become so weak that she had to stay home so that she could be monitored 24/7 and her grandparents could look after her. Why her grandparents? Because her mom died when she was really young and her father couldn't or wasn't willing to take care of her. So when I learned she had to stay home, I offered to get her the homework. She was really far from where I lived, considering I only had a scooter. Everyone was telling me that they could find someone else, but I was just too naive. When she saw the psychologist, leaving me in tears on the way home. She started getting better, and she was allowed to come back 2 days a week at school. I chose those as my perfect opportunity to declare to this poor girl that had so much to deal with. Of course, she said no, and I totally stopped talking to her or interacting with her in any way. My ass was too sorry for itself to try and be a decent person. I eventually got a text from her. Thanks for taking care of my homework, but I have made arrangements with the school so you don't have to bother with it. I still have it and read it sometimes to remember to never do such a thing again. Not my story, but this was my closest friend from high school. So we were juniors in high school, and the little brother of one of our classmates hung himself one day. Our classmate was actually the one who walked in and found him. Still, she went to school as a crying, upset mess, understandably. She was in the same first period class as my friend, who has no idea anything happened. And some of her friends were consoling her in the corner of the room. My friend then walks in, feels the tension in the room, and jokingly says, "Who died?" The room looked to him in horror, and the crying girl proceeded to burst out crying again. Ugh. On Halloween, when I was about 7, I went trick-or-treating with a friend who was black. Just wait, I promise that's relevant. I was dressed up as a ghost, and she went as a witch. At one point, my mother took a picture of us, and she gave us the camera so we could see the photo. Naturally, because it was dark outside, it wasn't a great pic. My friend saw, "Aw, I can't see myself in the photo." And I responded, "Well, it's because you're black." What I meant was that she was dressed in black. Hence, she didn't stand out next to me, dressed in a white sheet. But because I was 7 and oblivious to racial sensitivities, I didn't understand why she got so mad at me for ignoring my texts and ignored me for the rest of the night. Years later, this memory randomly pops into my head, and I have met this horrible realization of what she thought I meant to do. I'm so embarrassed about that to this day.